Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wine with Jimmy YouTube channel. Delighted to have you on board. This is a wine educational channel, believe it or not, designed really to help those of you studying the world of wine. So maybe you're doing your CMS, your WSET, something along those lines. I do series of videos to help you really through your studies, to give you the confidence, of course, to smash the exam out of the park and get that coveted distinction award. Now, if you have any comments, any concerns, any questions, please, of course, you can get in touch. The best way to do it here on this video is in the comments section just below this video, and make sure you click two buttons in that area, and that is the like button, because it always helps, but also the subscribe button to get our weekly updates, all things vinous. So, social media at the bottom of every slide, you can also get in touch with. At Wine with Jimmy is the way to follow me. So here, welcome to a series for the WSET Level 4. That's the diploma. And this is the D3 section on Burgundy in France. So this is Series 3. Series 3 looks at the areas between Dijon and Mâcon. That's the Cote D'Or, the Chalonnaise, and the Mâconnais. And we have a massive multi-part series on this one. And we're here on part 2, looking at really the lay of the land, the topography that we find here. So talking about hills and elevations, all of those things. So yes, part 3 will also be available as free content on geology, but parts 4 through to part 9 only available on my e-learning portal. That's over at www.winewithjimmy.com. That's also an area with extra content, exclusive content, and it's ad-free, which often is quite a nice thing. So what about this world and this landscape? So the aspect and the elevation of the various vineyards across the wonderful Burgundy region are among the most critical factors determining the style and the quality of the wine. So you see here, there's a topographic map of kind of central France. And you'll see that this large green expanse here actually is mostly the Bresse Plain. So if we'll keep going to the east of this map, we're going to hit the foothills of Jura and then eventually into the Alps. But we'll see we have some mountain ranges here that sit to the, some hillsides that sit to the eastern side, including things like the Morvan Hills, which were discussed actually in the last video. And our vineyards kind of hug the area which is right on the cusp of where the plain will meet the elevated hillside. So it's quite a good, you can actually pretty much draw the area on here where my arrow is going up and down in terms of where the vineyards are found, those wonderful, mainly east-facing vineyards of Burgundy. And here's a picture of the famous Corton Hill with its haircut on top of it, the forêt, the forest that sits on the top of it. So we know from that last map that we basically have a direction which is kind of north to south. So it is from Dijon to Mâcon in terms of its direction, meaning therefore that vineyards are generally going to face east, because you're going from north to south and vineyards are facing east. So it's a good idea to have a bit of luck at some of these locations and some of the variables that we can find here. Now, most of the elevations of the vineyards sit at around somewhere like 200 to 400 meters above sea level. We're certainly not high in altitude in this relatively moderate continental climate. You'll notice here we've got the small village of Pernand-Vergelesses. We've got Alox-Corton. There will be La Droit-Sérigny just off to the right-hand corner here. And sandwiched in between those three is the famous Corton Hill, which actually has aspects in many directions, but the bulk of it faces east. Things like Charlemagne itself actually is on this this southerly facing section of it. So it kind of looks like that. You've got lots of mainly east facing, but there are some valleys, and that's what we need to mention. We have got a number of side valleys which create a variety of aspects. So often when we talk about vineyards here, we always generalize and say they're east facing, some southeast facing. But of course, you do have variables. You can have some north, but it tends to be variable to sort of south, maybe southwest in some instances, but very few, through south, southeast, and east, and maybe northeast. That's the kind of general direction. So you'll actually see here, this is the village of Gevry-Chambertin. The kind of urbanized area of it is this middle part. And you'll notice that you'll see the dark orange area. That's the Grand Cru collection along the famous Route de Grand Cru, the main Grand Cru road. And this is pretty much, if you see the north arrow there is going in this direction. So this is east. This is purely east facing. But you'll notice there is a valley that the D116 goes up here, going in towards the hills. And we have some vineyards here. So this is around La Romanie, Estornel, Lavaux, and a little bit of Clos Saint-Jacques, which are actually going to be facing south. Some of it southeast, and then the rest of this around here, famous areas like Casatière, for example, faces mainly east. But it goes to show you that in one of these reclevés or side valleys, you have different aspects. It's not completely east, as one would expect. And this is similar in other places. You can go to Saint-Aban, Saint-Romain, and it's very similar in those. They're actually in valleys into the hills from places like Montrachet. And then places like Santenay and Morange, right in the southern section of the Cote d'Or, is actually mainly on a south-facing slope. So there are variables that we find in this area, of course. Now, what about the vineyard location on the slope? Now, the best sites are generally found, like we saw on the diagram on the previous slide, in the middle of the slope. They benefit from well-draining shallow soils with good sunlight interception, and they have, because they're on a slope, comparatively good frost protection and better ripening due to their central position. Everything really is in balance in these centralized areas. Okay, so that is where we tend to find Grand Cru or Premier Cru if the village doesn't have any Grand Cru. So the best are on the mid-slope. The other locations, so we have the top of the slope. Now, the top of the slope can have very, very thin and poor soil, and that's due to them being located at the northerly section of the slope where erosion is going to be quite significant. So a lot of surface runoff here. So there tends to be very shallow soils. So we call them high consumption soils. They're going to need a lot of nutrients added to them, maybe with things like cover crops, for example. Also, up here, there are winds that come through the forest. And there are going to be winds that go up and down here as well. So there are some cooling winds that are a little bit more prevalent in this northerly section compared to the mid-slope. And then at the bottom of the slope, these have much deeper soils. They are more towards the water table. There's more access to water here. And also we've got a more vulnerability to frost in this area due to the valley floor location. And the very coldest sites that tend to be in the valleys may be planted with Aligote, as it's a variety that has had to compete against Chardonnay in the past and has lost. Chardonnay has such international appeal that Aligote tends to be found on really the lesser sites, like the regional AOC valley areas, for example. The other locations, because really we've just been mentioning the Cote d'Or in that cross section and my example on Gevry-Chambertin and previously the Corton Hill. The other locations in Burgundy actually have a bit more variability. So in places like the Côte Chalonnaise and the Mâconnais will have a lot more variability. It's not one consistent contiguous slope. And some of the best southeast facing slopes of the Cote Chalonnaise are found in Bouzeron, which is in this picture, and also the village immediately to the south, which is Rouy. And then in the Mâconnais, the best and finest sites tend to be found in Puy-Fusset, which are right in the southern section, just been gaining their Premier Cru status in recent times, and that's in recognition of their superior quality, certainly in terms of things like their topography and their geology in comparison to other parts of the Mâconnais. So there you are for your topography. I do hope that you have enjoyed this section. The next one is all for you geologists out there. So we'll be looking at the soils, and it's another free video on the world of YouTube. Parts 4 to 9 will only be available as exclusive content on my portal over at winewithjimmy.com. Please do get in touch. Leave a comment below this video if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, or use the social media. And of course, if you do find yourself in Old Blighty in the fair green rolling hills of the United Kingdom, then come and see me in the capital city of London for a class, a glass, or a bottle. I've been Jimmy Smith. Ciao for now. Bye-bye.